Hello everyone and welcome to my UDK tutorial series. In this particular episode I'm going to be doing sort of an introduction to the series as well as sort of how to download UDK. This will be the re-uploaded version, so this will be updated as of August 9th. I had to look down to see what it said in the corner of my computer screen, but as of August 9th. Someone had pointed out in the comments that the way to download UDK was a little bit different. The website's been changed up a little bit, so I want to go ahead and remake this to update that. And thank you, Steam, for being annoying. Go away. Okay. I'm going to have to hit that because that's going to bother me and everyone else. Okay. So now that I'm offline on Steam, okay, so first things first, let's download UDK and then I'll cover a couple other things. So Google, literally just type UD. It's not letting me type. Okay, now there we go. So UDK, search it. You want the Unreal Engine website, the one that's going to be by Epic Games. So it's just going to be unrealengine.com. And you'll come up with this. It'll be like the sort of the main thing. Now, do keep in mind, UDK is not the same as Unreal Engine 4. UDK is sort of based off of Unreal Engine 3. It's sort of like a freeware. It's not quite that outdated, but it is a little bit more outdated. They've not done as many. They're not doing that many patches. You know, the last patch was May of 2014. Fairly recent, but just mostly bug fixes and stuff, not adding new content because Unreal Engine 4 has come out. But you can still use it if you want to get kind of a hang for how to mess around with stuff, and you can make games with it. Many people have. The licensing for all of that I will cover in just a second, but what you're going to want to do is you can select which one you want. Right down here, I'd recommend just the most recent one. Doesn't really matter. Then you just click the download button. And it'll take quite a while to download. It's 1.8 gigs. So, I mean, maybe not terribly long, but depending on how your internet is, quite a bit. What you're then going to want to do is, well, okay, the installation is going to be the same, yeah, because they haven't updated that. But the installation is basically you click the run button. It'll install it on your computer. It'll have, several different pop-up menus. It'll come up, to just sit there and install. It'll probably take a little while. Because it does take a while, and I don't want to reinstall UDK again, I'm just going to tell you there will be a point on the screen on like the options and stuff when it gets very near the end of the download. It'll ask you whether you want to. It'll have something to do with installing the Unreal Tournament stuff. If you decide that you don't want the assets, just keep in mind that throughout my tutorials, a lot of, 90% of the content that you see in the content browser or see me putting in game and stuff sometimes won't be available to you. You want to make sure that you do select to use the Unreal Tournament stuff. Maybe, it may not even say Unreal Tournament. It should, because it's what it's from, but I can't remember exactly the word. But you want to make sure you select that, because it'll give you all of that content to use if you want it. If you don't, that's fine, but you'll need to know what you're doing because you'll have to import all of your own stuff, which you can do normally, but it adds a crap ton of stuff that you can just kind of play around with and use. So, because I've had a couple people ask me, I don't see all of the stuff that you see in the content browser. It's almost entirely empty. What do I do? You're going to need to make sure that you install it with all of those assets. So I said that, covered the installation, should be good to go. One thing you will need to keep in mind is the licensing for this. So here we go. Now let's see. Okay, so this is sort of the licensing. Now keep in mind this is for UDK only. The licensing for Unreal Engine 3, which you'll see is right up here. You can click that. It's $19 a month, and you can use it. It's open source, open everything. You can custom create your own engine from it. You can do whatever you want. But it's $19 a month, however long you're using it. You don't have to continue using it after you make your game, but it's 5% of the profits of your game in royalties go to Epic Games. Okay, so to use that. So that's how that works. UDK is a little similar, except they have some stuff to do with royalties, and you have to buy a license and stuff like that. So you can read up on this just to make sure that you're not using the software illegally and you're doing everything okay. You can use the software for free. It's just whenever you want to actually publish a game with it, you have to follow through with the licensing, or you can get in some big trouble. So anyway, that's that. The only other thing I wanted to cover was pretty much... Stupid Steam, stop updating. It's the second time today. Ugh, go away. Sorry. The only other thing I wanted to cover briefly was sort of the structure of the series. Now keep in mind I am creating this a second time after I've already uploaded most of my stuff. But basically, and I've kind of got to go back and change some of the numbering up. I'm actually going to get rid of all of the numbering, because really there is no order in which you have to really watch the tutorials to understand it. I mean, with a programming language you do, because it builds on itself, but really for UDK it's just different facets of the stuff. So you can create terrain without having to know how to do lighting. I mean, yes, you'll need to put a little bit of lighting in there so you can kind of see how the shadows reflect off of some stuff. You know, like shadows for mountains and stuff like that, but you don't have to know how to do lighting in detail to create terrain, and vice versa. Actually, you know, to do lighting, you don't need to know how to do terrain at all. So, in a lot of times, when you're working on engines like this, and of course indie developers, that's an exception, but when you're working on a lot of stuff in like these big engines stuff, you'll have people that are literally dedicated to doing lighting, or dedicated to doing terrain, or level design, like placing all of the meshes in the level. That's all they do. They don't really do any lighting. They don't do any cinematic cutting or anything like that. You know, you'll have your guys that are doing your animation. You'll have your guys that are doing your texturing, and all that stuff. You have guys doing specific facets of things. So what I'll be doing in these tutorials is just kind of showing you the basics, not going real in depth, but just covering anything that's in the editor. Now, anything that has to do with programming or has facets of it that are doing with programming, I will not cover in this. A, because I don't know Unreal Script. B, that it would get sort of complicated, be going in and out of the editor, and I just kind of want to keep everything in the editor. So if you can do it entirely within the editor, then I'm going to be showing this tutorial. So some stuff like AI can is a little complicated, because it's not, it has some stuff to do with programming, and then it also has some stuff you can do in the editor, so it's kind of a bit of a mix of both. I'm not really going to touch on that much. One other thing, I'm just going to give you a fair warning, and if you don't want to watch tutorials because of this, that's fine, but I'm not a professional in this. Like I said earlier, most of the time in big companies, and yes, again, there are the indie developers, but I mean, the occasions of where one person is just making everything in a game is very, very rare. Terraria is an exception, but that's also a 2D side-scroller, not a 3D game, so that's a lot easier to make than a 3D game. And Terraria itself was done by one person. The music wasn't, but the occasions where only one person is working on something is rare. So the tutorials that I'm doing, I may not know every facet of everything. I can cover lighting, I can cover how to do terrain, how to do static, you know, how to put static meshes in, how to make fractured meshes, how to do, you know, your BSP, how to do all of these different things, but I may not know the exact details in every facet of everything. So there are some things I will say that I'm not quite sure what this does, or what this option does, or how to do this. But here are the other things that I know. So I do apologize for that, but at the same time, all of this is just sort of a hobby. I'm not getting my career in doing this, so I haven't gone that in-depth and looked it up. So that's just forewarning. If you don't want to watch because of that, that's fine. I can understand. And it's not like everything I don't know. If I didn't know all that much, I wouldn't do a tutorial on it. But there's just a couple options here and there that I may not know what that option changes. So anyway. Let's see. If I have had requests for things, and again, I'm re-uploading this, so I've had time to kind of I've uploaded quite a lot of things, so I've had time to look at stuff. I've had requests for doing weapons. That requires some programming aspects to it, because you cannot just simply say I'm going to import a weapon model and put it as a certain like type of weapon or something, and then it just work. You have to tie in particle systems to associate with the weapon so you have it fire. If you don't want to do that in the programming, that's fine. Maybe it won't fire a projectile, but you have to give it a damage value. So, you've got to do that at least in programming. You've got to give it, you have to orientate the model correctly with the player view. A lot of the times, games are made entirely with the weapon models already made. You don't just make a game and then add the weapon models. You make the game around the weapon models because that's what the player is going to be seeing the entire time. So you have to make sure that the way the camera works with all of that works. You have to scale it correctly and all of that stuff. So you have to deal with that. You have to you add your custom firing animations. You've got to add all of the stats for the weapon besides just the damage, projectile speed. Does it have a burst AoE? Does it have, I don't know, is it poisonous or something? Does it do damage over time? All of this kind of stuff. It requires programming. I did see a tutorial one time about here's how to recreate an existing weapon in UDK and change up some stuff. It was like a couple pages long. And that's just changing an already existing weapon in UDK to add just like a couple extra stats and stuff, not adding new stats and all of that. So I'm not going to be able to do weapons. I've had a lot of requests for that, and fortunately I can't show that. I may end up in the future looking up how to do it, but I'm not going to be able to do that anytime in the future, as of me recording this video. So that's the one thing. There's programming stuff I'm not going to be able to cover too much. Not that I don't know how to program, I just don't know Unreal Script. I know a couple other languages besides that. Now, depending on whether people want it or not, I may or may not do projects. If you want me to do one, that's fine, just say so. But basically, just kind of starting something, I may do like, I don't know, mountain, and just how to create a mountain from start to finish, combining all of the different ideas I've discussed in the tutorials and making it. I can't do anything too advanced, and it does need to include all of the stuff already in the content browser. So I can't do like giant orbital fortress because I can't make that with the stuff that's in the content browser. But basically, that's something I could do if people wanted. But I think that just about covers everything. So yeah, so not too much, but basically that's that. So thanks for watching, and feedback will be much appreciated, and I'll see you in another video.